Over the past several decades, immense progress has been made in overcoming the most persistent challenges of our time. With ongoing investments by a range of partners, millions of people worldwide now lead healthier, more productive lives. Now, we have a tremendous opportunity to help the more than 1 billion of the world's poorest people who live with the devastating and debilitating effects of neglected tropical diseases. Working together, we can control or eliminate 10 of these diseases by 2020, helping hundreds of millions across the globe build self-sufficiency and overcome the need for aid. For more than 20 years, partnerships between international aid organizations, pharmaceutical companies, and endemic countries have donated or discounted treatments, pooled resources, and invested in critical research and development to end these diseases. And they have made enormous progress in combating NTDs. But significant gaps remain in delivering effective treatments for these preventable diseases, continue to afflict 1 in 6 people worldwide. This makes it challenging for the world's poorest communities to lift themselves out of poverty. The World Health Organization has set goals to control or eliminate these diseases by the end of the decade. But meeting these ambitious targets will require greater collaboration than ever before. Today, an unprecedented number of partners, pharmaceutical companies, donor and endemic country governments, and international organizations are launching the most comprehensive and coordinated effort against NTDs. Through innovative partnerships that bring together the resources of many, we're providing more treatments, expanding accountability, and accelerating the research and development needed to strike a decisive blow against 10 of these diseases by 2020. We urge others to help us chart a new course for health and sustainability among the world's poorest communities. Because working together, we can achieve far more than any one of us could on our own to help the world's poorest people live healthier and more productive lives.
Well, Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, welcome. I'm Riz Khan, a TV news journalist, an international TV news journalist. Some of you may know me from my days at the BBC or CNN, or more recently, Al Jazeera English. This is usually the point where I say, don't go run screaming for the doors. It's not as bad as you think. But one thing I have done throughout my career is try to highlight key issues that affect the world at a level that the media doesn't generally tend to cover in the 24-hour news cycle, such as the one today, which is uniting to combat neglected tropical diseases. Now, as you know, we're not very good, as I say, in the media, so I applaud the large media gathering here. It's great to have so many people, some who've travelled into Britain to come for this gathering, and I applaud you for recognizing what an important story this is. More than 1 billion of the world's poorest people are killed or crippled by these illnesses that we actually have the power to treat. That's a massive chunk of humanity, 1 in 7 people in the world, and many of us can't even pronounce the names of many of the diseases: schistosomiasis, lymphatic filariasis. I was practicing quite hard. Although, of course, some are much simpler. River blindness, guinea worm, leprosy, something that's not just relegated to movies about biblical times, still a major concern today. And I'd like to actually, just at this stage as we start, recognize those who, on the ground, as well as all the people here who are involved, have fought these diseases tirelessly. We saw many of them in the video there, so please, a round of applause for those who really have been working hard at this. And I say this because I'll explain in a moment, but we have people from around the world joining us who will be aware of this, and they are actually on the ground doing this. But now we know much more can be done, which is why we're here today, and we're joined by a set of partners from pharmaceutical companies, foundations, global health organizations, governments, and civil society. It's actually a historic gathering, really, because it's probably the largest and most comprehensive and diverse gathering of people here for such a large and collaborative initiative with the goal of eliminating 10 of these neglected tropical diseases, and of course bringing life and empowering hundreds of millions of people across the globe. It'll also save $10 billion a year in lost productivity and treatment costs. So this gathering brings you the London Declaration on NTDs, signed by many of the organizations here, pledging to reach the 2020 goals and establish new mechanisms to monitor results. Like I said, what makes this event actually truly global is the fact that we have people from around the world watching online, both through the live webcast, which is on the website www.unitingtocombatntds.org. We also have people who've organized viewing parties to join us here, and they're watching from Rio, Nairobi, Accra, Delhi, Lima, Dar es Salaam, also in Argentina, many other places, and people are tweeting. We really have reached that stage where the world is interconnected, and they're actually tweeting here. The hashtags, if you're following, is hashtag NTDs and hashtag London Declaration. Now, something I have to emphasize very, very importantly here at this stage is we're trying to cram so much into a very short period of time. We've got a very tough schedule here, and I briefed all the panelists who are up here, and I brief you in advance when it comes to the Q&A. Please, please, please keep your comments and questions very, very short. I'm actually a volunteer here as such, so I can't technically be fired, which empowers me to actually interact and be relatively forceful in my intervention if people go over time. So think about it. If Bill Gates only gets a few minutes here, and he's a man everyone wants to listen to, it must be a tough schedule. So for those of you who contribute, please keep those brief later. Let me quickly explain to you how it's going to work today. We've basically set up 4 acts. And these 4 acts will take us through the initiatives today. Act 1 is called Setting the Stage, and it's with various vested sectors exploring the impact of NTDs and what has motivated the unity in action that we're seeing now. Act 2 is making progress with existing tools and strategies. It's looking at the toolbox available right now to fix the problem, along with strategies that have been employed so far. And we have Act 1 and 2, if you like, up on stage. And then we'll swap them over for Act 3, which is a bit of an eye-opener because it's exploring innovations and new tools that might make a major difference. And then Act 4 will be about realizing the 2020 goals and examining how we might actually get there. All quite short, these acts, about 15 minutes each with these speakers here. So again, I'm going to put pressure on you all to be very short. So as we have Act 1 and 2 up here, let me start with the contributors to Act 1. And Dr. Margaret Chan, always a pleasure to see you again, ma'am. Director General of the World Health Organization. Now, you've made NTDs one of your priorities, but when you consider that these diseases have been around for thousands of years, why are you so optimistic now that we can defeat NTDs?
Riz, nice to be here. Why? Because this is unbelievable. At a very difficult time, financially speaking, and yet we are able to gather people together to commit to help people. The bottom 1 billion people who were anchored or imprisoned in poverty because of all these diseases. Just think of a moment, the woman you saw on the video, suffering from elephantiasis. When I first saw that, I said, she has no social life. She can't even get married. And even if she got married after she had the disease, she's stigmatized. Her children is stigmatized. It's just unbearable. So I've been trying to work very hard, with the pharma industry, with civil society, with governments, of course, especially endemic governments, endemic countries, to move the needles. And I have to pay tribute to all the partners. In the past, we relied too much on only drug donation. That is one solution, but that is not the only solution. We need to really expand the donor base, the partner base, as well as countries who also need to commit. And multilateral organizations like WHO, working with the World Bank and other agencies, also need to play our part. So we have the tools, we know what to do, and this new public-private partnership is unprecedented at this financial constraint period. And the do-good spirit is what is giving me a lot of optimism. To free 1 billion people, most of them are children and women, men, of course, from poverty. And this is what is driving us. And the interesting thing is, many of these ancient diseases were actually brought to their knees with the good medicines that we have already had on hands. And of course, the R&D guys will speak more about the efforts they will do to bring in new instruments. Today, WHO is launching a roadmap that has been tested and proven effective that will guide our work to achieve our goals in 2020. Last but not the least, let me congratulate all the people that have been part of this neglected tropical disease movement for your efforts, for your support. We need your energy to go forward to get to the last mile and achieve our 2020 goals. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Chan, for those opening comments. Now, Stephen O'Brien is parliamentary. I'm going to get you not to pull a clap just yet, because we really don't have time, would you believe? Stephen O'Brien is Parliamentary Under-Secretary of State for the UK's Department of International Development. Sir, your development has, your department has continued to champion foreign aid for global health and development in spite of the tough economic times. But there's a reason these diseases are called neglected. And so how can we be sure that the donor community support and efforts will continue to reach their targets?
Well, thank you very much, and thank you indeed, Margaret, for all your supportive words and your thoughtful insights. But first, may I welcome everybody to London, to this very important gathering. I think the context of how these decisions are made is that as a ministerial team at DFID, we've looked very closely at the evidence. I've personally been involved in these matters for a long time, but belief isn't enough. It's got to be on the evidence of what works, what achieved results, and it's something which really does influence how we deploy resources, particularly in the context of the commitment we have to the 0.7 target, which is the bedrock to our ability to make these decisions, has been influenced by the positive reports of what we've been seeing across the NTD world, not least from the pharmaceutical companies and the partnerships that they offer, but also from WHO, from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and from USAID. And so, coupled that with the huge academic expertise that we happen to have in this country, which has also been very influential, that's supported our investigation as to how we might support more and better results. And that evidence, as well as the conviction, has pushed us to reach the right conclusion. And that has shaped our ambitious scale-up for results on the evidence and to ensure that we get the value for money in achieving the results for poor people. So in October last year, I pledged that the UK would increase and extend its support to guinea worm eradication by 2015. We challenged others to step forward and close the Carter Centre's financing gap. And so today I'm delighted to announce that the challenge that we set has been met by 3 other donors: the Gates Foundation, His Highness Sheikh Khalifa bin Zayed Al Nahyan, President of the United Arab Emirates, and the Children's Investment Fund Foundation, donating an additional $40 million to guinea worm eradication. So that closes the gap to fully fund the achievement of the eradication efforts. So it's over to the Carter Centre and WHO to move guinea worm from neglected to eradicated. And as well as guinea worm results, the UK's new NTD package will comprise 5 distinct but integrated strands. Increased support for the 3 other diseases we already work on, that's lymphatic filariasis, onchocerciasis, schistosomiasis, and indeed soil-transmitted helminths. And you'll have to go back to the introduction to get the layman's terms for all those. More research, strengthening WHO's NTD department capacity, new programs to control trachoma and visceral leishmaniasis, and integrated program approaches that tackle a range of NTDs in 2 high-burden countries. And so that support by the British people through the Department for International Development will help protect more than 140 million people from neglected tropical diseases and the suffering, disability and death, about 500,000, that these diseases cause. And to do this, we will increase our financial investment and cumulative spend 5-fold, from £50 million to £245 million by 2015. And that is 4 treatments a second over that period. So I think the 2 final very specific comments are that this is a result of truly excellent collaboration and contribution by the pharmaceutical industry as well as all the other stakeholders. And by showing what can be done, we really can, through NTDs, leverage the contributions of other partners. And that roadmap we've just had announced by WHO will be the way we can measure our milestones. And I hope that the messages today will therefore persuade others to rise to the challenge. Tackling NTDs is without doubt one of the greatest value for money development interventions around. And together we must work in partnership, not just to save those 500,000 lives and to reduce the suffering of 1 billion people, but this is the time to take neglected out of neglected tropical diseases. Thank you.
Mr. Bryan, thank you very much, sir. We'll squeeze in a quick applause there. Dr. Donan Mbando has dealt first-hand with NTDs as Tanzania's Director of Preventative Services. So I ask you, Dr. Mbando, why are NTDs such a challenge? What sort of potential effort are we discussing today that will represent what you're doing?
Good morning, and thank you for the opportunity. The plight of people with the neglected tropical diseases in my country is so real. You just have to see people with hydrocele, elephantiasis, pain and sufferings so as to endure. You need to see people with severe itching, lizard skins, which are manifestation of river blindness. You need to see young children with the blinding trachoma. These are the irritating effects of these diseases. As a person who has seen and acted on these diseases, I like to assure you that this event is very, very critical and important to me personally and to my country. Neglected tropical diseases, as mentioned earlier on, is a priority in our health sector. Tanzania has committed to controlling and eliminating the disease in collaboration with the partners. Some are here present, using funds from DFID, USAID, and drug donating manufacturers like Pfizer, GSK, Merck, and others. We are really very grateful for your support. However, we cannot tackle these diseases individually. That is why Tanzania has taken a further step to using the integrated approach, putting together efforts to maximize the impact. We are looking forward to continue working with you. However, this gathering here today is a demonstration of power of working together. The approach which you are using in Tanzania, I hope, is going to be a model to others. I thank you.
Sir, I thank you very much too. And of course, the beauty of this is it doesn't end here. The discussion will continue this afternoon. You will have a chance to, if you need to, especially the media, talk to any of our panelists as well. So I appreciate everyone being brief with their comments here. Thank you. Thank you, Doctor. Okay, Sir Andrew Whitty has a lot on his plate, of course, as CEO of GlaxoSmithKline, and an effective response to NTDs requires contributions from the private sector, since companies are the ones that develop and manufacture drugs needed. So, Sir Andrew, even though many companies have supported charitable NTD efforts, how strong is your commitment to go that extra mile to achieve these goals for 2020?
Well, Riz, I think what we've seen over the last year or so is a real coming together of the industry. So I've been fortunate enough to co-chair, along with Bill, a roundtable of the CEOs of the industry. And we really identified a year or so ago that the NTDs was a place we really wanted to get some traction. So for the first time, we've now got 13 pharmaceutical companies who've come together essentially to ask what's the maximum we can really try and do here to apply our combined efforts to really tackle, in line with the WHO goals, eradication or elimination or limitation of the various diseases. And what you're seeing in the announcement today is a variety of different commitments across the board of all of those companies. Those range from new commitments from some companies, very substantial increased commitments in donations from others who already had programs running, and also, I think, very excitingly, the opening up of compound libraries and intellectual property in partnership with other organizations such as DNDi to really ensure that we discover the next generation of potential medicines and treatments for NTDs. What we're also committing to is the timeline. I think it's great to have commitment. It's even better to have a deadline. And we're absolutely in line with the 2020 goals of the WHO. We're also committed to holding ourselves accountable with a scorecard to make sure people can keep track of what we're doing and not doing. So I think from an industry point of view, what you're seeing here is people really moving on. And if I can use, I think, a proverb which you hear often in Africa, I think, which is if you want to travel fast, travel alone. If you want to travel far, travel as a group. And I think what the industry is demonstrating is its commitment. It wants to travel far in the mission to help in Africa to eradicate these neglected tropical diseases which cause so much pain for so many people in the way that you've just heard. Thank you.
Sir Andrew, thank you, sir. Well, Bill Gates, of course, has been a remarkable catalyst in bringing many crucial players together, especially here today. Now, we're familiar with his tireless efforts to change the world in positive ways as the co-chair of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, but this push on NTDs appears to be quite unique. So, Mr. Gates, why is that? What makes this effort different? You know, why should we believe this has a reasonable chance of success?
Well, certainly the types of things that are being announced today, this is not a first for those things. In fact, there have been drug donations. We've got Lady Jean Wilson here, who over 50 years ago Her husband created a group to go after this disease. She actually coined the term river blindness. So there's a history, a very proud history of involvement and donations, and many of the burdens have come down. But in fact, they haven't come down nearly far enough. And what's unique about today is getting everybody on the same page. The drug suppliers, they're willing to be generous, but they need to know that there's a roadmap that comes from WHO. They need to know that there's a delivery funding that comes from people like DFID and USAID. And they need to know that the countries involved are going to orchestrate their health systems to make sure that all the drugs really get to those people in need. And so what's unique today is that all of those actors have stepped forward in a dramatic way. You know, some of the drugs will be delivering 5 and 10 times as much. Many of these locations will be going in year after year, which is what you need to get these numbers down very dramatically. And because we've grouped all these diseases together, I hope we don't lose the kind of direct understanding of what a human impact it has to have success here. This is a picture of a gentleman who has a lymphatic filariasis. And, if you just look at him, you know that his life has been utterly changed by it. And yet, if he'd had access to just a few of these pills, he would have been able to live a normal life. And so that's a story that we see over and over and over again. The soil-transmitted helminths, you won't see a visual picture, but what actually goes on is that the parasitic load that young kids have of those worms means that they're malnourished in a way that their brain never fully develops. So as the rest of their life, they're permanently impacted by this. And so I think what we've got pulled together in total here is such that, maybe as the decade goes on, people will wonder whether these should be called neglected diseases. I mean, after all, if we are making these milestones, then we'll just call them tropical diseases. Among the actors that we've got are some philanthropists who've come in, and it's great to see that because this is an area when you give to it, you can actually go out, see the country where your donations being used. We've got Sylvia Gold and Hugo Sigmund donating $5 million, and I think we want to draw even more philanthropists into this. It's huge value for money. It's huge, very direct impact. There's nothing all that mysterious about what we're doing here. For the foundation itself, we're committing ourselves over the next 5 years to spend $340 million going after these diseases. Some of that will be on the innovation drug discovery side. A lot of that will be funding these delivery programs that we've talked about. So I couldn't be more thrilled at the way everybody's come here together today. The pharmaceutical industry, it's amazing what they're doing. The aid agencies, it's amazing they're stepping up in these times, and WHO has helped create the overall framework.
Mr. Gates, thank you, sir. So it sounds like, as Andrew said, it's a question of everyone traveling as a group to go further rather than all trying to race for a faster trip each. Well, that brings us to the end of Act 1, which sets the stage for what's behind this push on NTDs and the unique collaboration, as Mr. Gates just said, across all sectors that has so much potential, as well as the announcement for new commitments. Now we have to see how it all fits together and why there's an excellent chance and opportunity to tackle these diseases. It's helpful to look at this slide that's just gone up here, showing 10 NTDs that present a huge health challenge to more than 1 billion people. Now, if you see, there's been a tendency to think of them all as one, as sort of one group in separate sectors. But extensive research recently has shown that actually these diseases can be grouped, and as you'll see here, they spread into 5 that, where there are good tools and strategies, but more are needed. But these 3 you see on the right here are other diseases diseases needing new tools and strategies to achieve the 2020 goals. So the idea is now that we can actually look as we go through the next acts to find out how this might be done. So Act 2 is a chance to look at making progress with existing tools and strategies. And again, I'm going to tell our panelists, remind them, of course, of our tight time schedule. But I start with Dr. Ariel Pablos-Mendez, who's the Assistant Administrator for Global Health at the UN Agency for International Development. And Dr. Pablos-Mendez, USAID has been a leader in NTD control over the years. Based on that experience, can you tell us, when it comes to diseases where good drugs exist, what's working and what's not?
Thank you very much. A lot is working actually very well. And as someone who has been involved in global health for several years, it's great to see the momentum that has been gained. So lots of things are working well in the US Congress, in the international community, and at the country level. The United States itself started really ramping up its investments in the NTD program in the year 2006 with about $15 million or so. And it's been increasing their commitment in the last several years despite the economic situation in the country, and it's just appropriated about $89 million for 2012. So the commitment of the American people to this cause is a very important a part of the success of what is working well. Second is really partnerships and coordination. And people talk a lot about global health in architecture and so on. But clearly this is a space where all of the pieces are working well together. WHO providing the leadership in the policy space, in the frameworks, in the convenings, the industry coming up not only with new compounds, whether it's from Japan, the United States, UK, and so on, but also in commitments to donations. And I think the Make This Donation program already over 20 years ago was the grandfather, in a way, of all the modern public-private partnerships. And it's great to see the commitment of industry to this cause. And it's also, of course, fantastic how DFID is also coming along big time in support for this effort. At the country level, coordination, integration is paramount. Part of the success story of the NTD movement is the integration of the service, the smart integrations at the policy level, the capacity, and so on. This reduces training by 30%, cost of training. It reduces the cost of delivering by 40 or 50%. So clearly it's a smart way, and President Obama Global Health Initiative invites us all to find ways to be more efficient, and integration clearly is one of those. Not everything is yet done, but a lot of progress, and I think one of the challenges for us going forward will be, one is to document the impact of all of these efforts on the ground and to have as good a picture as we get from many of the other conditions in this arena as well. And second, I think many of the governments that are growing economically will need to also begin to commit themselves in an increasing manner to make sure that these efforts will be sustainable and very successful in the long term. Thank you.
Sir, thank you very much. Thanks for your contribution. Dr. Stefan Oschmann, as CEO of Merck, perhaps you could tell us a bit more about how companies like yours can play a role in addressing the difficulties in drug supplies.
Biopharmaceutical companies obviously know something about doing R&D. We know something about manufacturing drugs. We know how to engage with the healthcare communities, and we have partnering as an integral part of our business model. And I think that should explain why we should play a role in helping to tackle neglected tropical diseases. We have been engaged as a company in an effort to combat schistosomiasis for several years now. Schistosomiasis is very difficult to pronounce, but it's not impossible to eliminate. And we have recently worked with our colleagues from WHO, Lorenzo in particular, and we've sat down and we said there's a real chance that this terrible, ugly disease, we said this morning, can be eliminated. It requires more drug. It requires novel formulations. It requires some research, and it requires an effort in distribution and infrastructure and medical education. And I'm very happy to be able to officially announce today that we took a decision that we will step up our effort, our drug donation program, from 25 million tablets a year to 250 million tablets a year, so that WHO will be able to meet their targets, and we will also be working on a new pediatric formulation, in particular for preschool age children, which are particularly vulnerable for this disease. So we are the oldest pharma and chemicals company in the world, founded in 1668, and we take pride in having a long-term approach. We hope that this contributes to long-term goals. And we have very, very dedicated employees. A small team of people in our R&D department have decided that we should do this, and they convinced me and our board, and I'm simply very happy about that.
Dr. Oschmann, thank you very much, sir. Well, Dr. Alexandra Lorenzo Jaime Manguele, I want to ask you as Minister of Health of Mozambique, it's great to hear about commitments such as the one mentioned by Dr. Oshman there of Merck, but supply is one factor, and there are important issues of delivery and implementation. So I wonder, taking your country as an example, what is Mozambique doing to ensure that NTD drugs can actually reach the people who need them?
Thank you very much. I start for saying thank you to the organizers of this important event. This is a special moment for us because it's one of the opportunity to improve and to reinforce the National Health Service in Mozambique, provide that fighting against neglected tropical diseases, we do it by integrating approach. The support of donors and the donation of much needed drugs like Merck's praziquantel donations and others can have a huge impact in countries like Mozambique. We are a country with a significant neglected tropical disease burden, and it is important for us in this regards to play our part in this fighting against neglected tropical diseases, implementing an appropriate response, and get treatments to our people. That is why we are making a national commitment to fight NTDs by initiating a new integrated program with funding support from the FID and USAID. We can implement new mass drug administration programs to prevent the spread of these diseases. By 2013, we aim to cover 100% of population in lymphatic filariasis endemic areas with annual mass treatment with albendazole and ivermectin. 1 year later, we will also reach 100% coverage of school-based treatment with praziquantel from schistosomiasis in the whole country. Mass treatment for trachoma will start this year. So, by 2015, we aim to be treating around 27 million people per year against neglected tropical diseases. This is a massive effort indeed, but we are committed to do it. We use an integrated multisectoral approach based on the existing health and education network. This is the kind of approach we encourage other governments to do it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Manguele. Thank you very much, and obviously a strong commitment on the part of your country, which fits in very much with the strength of the initiative taking place here, sir. Well, Mr. Haruo Naito is CEO of ISAI. I thank you for being here, sir. We've now heard how different sectors can work together to fill the gaps in the supply chain for NTD drugs. Now, how can we look across companies themselves to ensure we're meeting the various supply needs?
Yeah, my topic today is lymphatic filariasis. We need 3 drugs to combat this disease, and Merck and GSK providing 2 drugs with excellent long-standing donation programs. But only the third one, DC, DHL carbamazine, is known the very shortage of stable supply. So we talked with the WHO, and we found that there are some mission we can work on. So we are committed to produce 2.2 billion DC tablets towards 2020, along with the lines of goals of WHO. And probably 37 endemic countries will distribute this, and more than 250 million people in need will benefit. We're going to spend something like $35 million for this project. And how we can persuade our shareholders? We consider this is price zero price ASI product, because we love this DC tablet so much. We produce this product using our most modern production facility in India. We achieve the registration to WHO, and we take care of the pharmacovigilance with WHO. So this is truly loved our tablets or products, but with zero price. And how we can persuade our shareholders to do so? Well, this is long-term investments. Long-term investments for the people, for societies, and for economies in developing countries to lift up to middle income level in the future. So we are very much proud of participate this kind of long-term investments. Our supply will start 2013. So until that time, we collaborate with Sanofi as well as the Gates Foundation to supply over 120 million tablets co-funding with using Sanofi production. With those collaboration among industry colleagues as well as global organization, I think we can ensure that the stable supply of the drug would not be the bottleneck of eliminating NTDs. Thank you.
Nacho-san, thank you very much. Well, ladies and gentlemen, you can have a round of applause now for Act 1 and 2. We crammed in a lot there. That was applause worthy of a Shakespeare play. So I'm going to ask now for a quick swap of Acts 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 to change places, and we can continue with the next parts. Thank you again for this part. We did get a lot in there, and again, I thank everyone for keeping their interventions brief. Now, this chance, as we do the swap over, the transition in Acts, gives me a chance to show you a very, very interesting and heartening slide, actually, of what recent research and efforts have turned up. So here we have the first slide showing you where we are now when it comes to these 10 neglected tropical diseases. You can see that everything is quite far off actually achieving the 2020 goal, but this next slide is actually more encouraging. It shows what can be done with existing tools and strategies. And you heard about that in Act 2 there, and what they're capable of doing. But you see, it's still short of the 2020 goals. There's pretty much only up there, guinea worm, which has crossed over with the existing tools and strategies. So this next one's quite a wake-up call. Of these 10 diseases targeted for elimination and control, all are clearly tackled by the goal deadline of 2020, but it's going to take new tools and strategies. So that's where we get to when we go into Act 3, what we regard as new and what the new strategies are, as we explore this part, innovation and new tools. So again, a tough time schedule, but I'm going to get through this very quickly and introduce first Bill Weldon, the CEO of Johnson & Johnson. As with our other panelists, you can see this is a really high-powered group, so I thank you for being here for this important initiative. Now, we keep hearing that progress is possible and many of these diseases are preventable and treatable. So why is it so important to invest in new treatments?
Well, Riz, we do have some really useful medicines to combat neglected tropical diseases, but there's really not enough, and not in some of the most debilitating conditions. River blindness and elephantiasis are examples. These are disfiguring, awful diseases that have a massive impact on people, people's lives. The drugs we now have only kill the immature worms that cause the diseases. The adult worms in the patient's body keep reproducing themselves, so you have to keep treating people over and over again every year for as long as 15 years until the adult worms die. A drug that kills adult worms would mean people could be cured faster and with fewer treatments and fewer side effects. Flubendazole, which is one of my company's drugs, kills the adult worms, but we need an oral form of the drug. So we're pleased to pick up on work creating an oral flubendazole. We'll work on preclinical research along with DNDi and the research coordinator, as well as Abbott and Pfizer, who are providing technical support. If oral flubendazole continues to look promising, J&J will co-fund clinical development, collaborating with the Gates Foundation and others to bring the drug to approval. We're pleased to bring our R&D capabilities to battling river blindness and elephantiasis, two horrible conditions that affect many people's lives in the developing world.
Mr. Weldon, thank you very much, sir. Dr. Bernard Pacul is the Executive Director of the Drugs for Neglected Diseases Initiative, and you have to coordinate most of the drug R&D programs that we'll hear about today. In fact, DNDi is a product partnership established exactly for that purpose. So what impact will these commitments from companies like Johnson & Johnson and others have on your efforts to accelerate R&D for these diseases?
Thank you. Yes, all commitment announced today will have a great impact on our portfolio, because we all agree that to achieve the WHO roadmap today, in some of the diseases, we need new tools. It is urgent. 10 years ago, the pipeline was almost empty, but the DNDi and other public development partnerships have started to build the pipeline. Today, DNDi has developed 6 new treatments, and we start to have a robust portfolio with new chemical entities. We can speak of success, but still very limited success. We have learned a lot over the past decade, and we like to highlight 3 lessons that we have learned. The first is the importance of boosting innovation and building innovative public and private partnership. So today we have commitment from 12 companies: Abbott, AstraZeneca, Bayer, BMS, Eisai, Gilead, GSK, J&J, Merck, Novartis, Pfizer, and Sanofi. With this partnership, we secure access to compounds libraries, data, knowledge, and expertise. We will save time and money. With such a critical mass, we can test the open source model that Andrew Whitty promoted 2 years ago. Our agreement for drug development with companies such as Sanofi and Eisai should secure access to new treatment at an affordable price in all endemic countries. This is a gold standard. Second lesson, we know that we need to involve endemic country partners from A to Z in defining patient needs, in conducting research, as well as being involved in implementation and access. Last but not least, we need sustainable and diversified funding. The commitment announced today by the Gates Foundation, by DFID, by Monsanto will catalyze innovation, but we need additional money from donors as well as new funding mechanisms. In conclusion, I want to say that to make a real difference, we must go beyond individual success story and move towards sustainable change. Today's commitments show that we are on the right track. To achieve our common goal, we need both a strong coordination of programs to treat patients now and a global framework for R&D under the leadership of WHO.
Dr. Becquerel, thank you very much, sir. Christopher Wiebacker is the CEO of Sanofi, which Dr. Becquerel just mentioned as one of those partners, and he's also with us for Act 3. His company has made a lot of progress in tackling sleeping sickness. So, Mr. Wiebacker, why are you supporting R&D efforts above and beyond those programs? And what else needs to be done besides research?
Well, I think your slide and actually discussing with Bernard this morning, there's a today and there's a tomorrow. Clearly, there's a huge unmet need today, and we have to mobilize that which we already have. So if we take sleeping sickness, here we've got injectable drugs. We can provide 3. We work with Bayer to provide the 4th. You know, injectable drugs need a cold chain. Very often patients who are being treated are hospitalized, and these aren't really very adapted to the situation. Now, we've compensated for that. We've had a 10-year partnership with the WHO. We actually worked to provide all the logistics. You know, one of the things that most people don't realize, it's not just a matter of actually providing drugs. In this case, we've actually provided scooters to Médecins Sans Frontières. We've done education. We've done prevention. We have done screening on 17 million people to find 170,000 patients and in effect saved 170,000 lives. So that's already good, but these drugs aren't really enough. So we're now partnering, for example, with the DNDi to find an oral therapy, which would dramatically change access to care. Now then we also talk about tomorrow. You had your chart up, we need to do more, we need new solutions. And here's where you're really getting into the sensitive topic. I mean, we're talking about, it's one thing to work amongst us as competitors. You know, we are true competitors. It's not that easy for us to work together commercially. Now you're talking about research and development, which is really where the core secrets of companies are. Sharing compounds, libraries of compounds, is extraordinarily difficult, and it's only because of the huge unmet need that I think we've been able to get together. And this is where, you know, Bill Gates in particular has played such a critical role in catalyzing it. So here's some of the things we've done. There is, for instance, the World Intellectual Property Organization, WIPO. We've created a research database. This will provide, with 7 companies, Alnylam, AstraZeneca, SI, GlaxoSmithKline, Merck, Novartis, Pfizer, and ourselves, we will provide 2 researchers on neglected disease anywhere in the world, proprietary data from our companies. We have on Chagas, which is one of the diseases that needs an awful lot of effort, we have sent 300 compounds to special research centers in Argentina. So we're starting to work together in partnership in an unprecedented way, and these research efforts should be able to close the gaps that you had in your slide.
So thank you very much. A key sign, of course, as you say, there of unique collaboration and what makes this initiative so unique as well. Well, we have from Bangladesh Dr. Ruhal Haq, who's the Minister of Health and Family Welfare. And as we've discussed before, drugs are only effective if they reach those who need them. And for that reason, Bangladesh, I know, has been working very hard to improve its approach to NTD program implementation. So, Mr. Minister, how does this research we've been talking about have an impact on the country programs, and how can endemic countries themselves play a role in driving NTD innovation?
Thank you, Riz, for everything. I would like to thank everybody on behalf of the billion poor people for attacking NTDs. Bangladesh commits for all its efforts to achieve the targets to control the elimination of NTDs. The country has been working for elimination of visceral leishmaniasis by 2015 with the strategy of expanding cost-effective diagnostic facility up to the sub-district and community level. It has introduced newer and more effective drugs replacing old regime of sodium stevogluconate. Following the field-level trial, oral drugs of miltefosine is on use now. We have included other drugs like amphotericin B, promycin, and national guidelines. We have been conducting a number of drug trials using single and combination therapy to find better and more effective treatment options. Technical support from DNDi, TDR, and WHO has been instrumental for these scientists to undertake these studies on drug. Diagnosis and vector control of Kala-Jar also. We have introduced the costly and most effective drug liposomal amphotericin B with the support of MSF. I greatly appreciate the commitment of Gilead to provide us with the liposomal amphotericin B for the next 5 years. It will strengthen our effort for elimination of Kala-Jar. As part of the integrated vector management, we have started the residual spray, indoor residual spray with the deltamethrin, and active case detection through camp approach from house to house. With these efforts, we hope to eliminate Kala-Jar in Bangladesh. I'd like to thank everybody that are here. We have got some other diseases like the STH, dengue, and others which we are also controlling very well. But I would like to mention that without the improvement of sanitation, water quality, and vector control, we will not be able to achieve this. I would like to thank everybody for coming forward. Thank you.
Minister, thank you very much, sir. Thank you. And our final panelist for Act 3 is Paul Carter, the Senior Vice President for International Commercial Operations at Gilead, whose valuable contribution on visceral leishmaniasis has just been mentioned, I think, by Minister Haq there. So, Mr. Carter, how is Gilead working with these countries to get this medicine to those who need it?
Thanks, Riz. So first of all, thanks to the Gates Foundation and WHO for pulling this together. It's really great. Gilead's thrilled to be here. As you're well aware, visceral leishmaniasis is a very serious disease affecting hundreds of thousands of people, primarily in South Asia and the Horn of Africa. It's actually responsible for more deaths worldwide each year than any other parasitic disease other than malaria. Gilead has been working on several initiatives in parallel to try and provide liposomal amphotericin B, or ambosome as we call it, to make sure this is accessible to as many patients as possible. It's a very safe and effective treatment, and because of its shorter and simple treatment course, it can be significantly less expensive than many other therapy options. So what is Gilead doing? So firstly, we just recently announced that over the next 5 years, we're going to donate 450,000 vials of ambosome through the WHO. That should cure around 50,000 people suffering from visceral leishmaniasis during this time. It's not a one-off pledge. It's part of our company-wide efforts to find innovative and sustainable ways to ensure that cost is not a barrier to access to effective medicines in developing countries. Gilead, by the way, will also continue to provide ambosome at no profit, at cost of manufacture, to all endemic countries through the WHO and any other NGO organizations. Recently, we've been providing drug donations for clinical studies by organizations like the DNDi, totaling around 10,000 vials over the last 2 years. And these studies hopefully will help to find the best ways to address VL in different geographies. And lastly, but not least, we're investing in further research to try and reduce the cost of AmBisome in resource-limited settings. So what this means is we're applying our knowledge to try and look at different ways of manufacturing AmBisome and, for example, different presentations. Today it's an injectable, and we're hoping to try and produce, for example, a liquid formulation that we believe could reduce costs significantly. So Gilead's a fairly small company, but we're very, very passionate about our science and about doing the right thing in the developing world. So we're very happy to be here and be in partnership with this group. Thank you very much.
Mr. Carter, thank you very much, sir. So that takes us to Act 4, the crucial goal of realizing 2020 and what's hoped to be achieved by then, the 2020 goals. So, Dr. Caroline Anstey, I'm going to ask you to kick off this act. It's good to see you again. Earlier this morning, we talked about the worldwide financial situation. And as managing director of the World Bank and facing a tighter global budget, how can your organization help to reach the critical mass that's needed to really achieve those 2020 goals?
Well, thank you very much, Riz. I think it also really depends on priorities, commitment, and how we look at this. And perhaps first of all, I'd like to suggest we're not really talking about neglected diseases. We're talking about diseases of neglected people. And I think that's very key. And it is about how and if and whether we value them. So how can the bank support? I think we want to support in two main ways, which I think are key. First, we want to extend our financing and technical support, which will be some 745 million over the next 3 years, directly to countries to help build stronger community health systems and to make sure that NTDs are integrated with those health systems and with that work. Secondly, I think equally important, we want to extend our commitment to APOC. APOC has been doing fantastic work on river blindness. It's due to run out in 2015. We want to extend our support for another 15 years to 2025 and have APOC increase its coverage to the 7 preventable NTDs in Africa. What have we learned from the work we've done with APOC and from river blindness? Because I think this is key to how we can actually move forward. I think we've learned that we can eliminate diseases. 600,000 people have been saved from blindness. 275 million have been given treatment to prevent in a preventative way. 260,000 community healthcare workers are helping to deliver the drugs. And this is really key. We've learned, as I say, that elimination is possible in Mali and Senegal. River blindness infections have been brought to 0. And I think we've learned that it's because of communities, community delivery of drugs, that we are able to have impact. Simply put, we need the drugs are key, and I would like to take this opportunity to thank Merck for everything it's done for river blindness over the last 15 years. But just as crucially, we need to ensure that the drugs actually reach the people in the communities. And this means health workers. It means local health workers who can crucially serve as a one-stop shop for local people, delivering not just medicines against NTDs, but delivering bed nets, delivering medicines for other diseases, delivering very critical vitamin A supplements. So this is what a functioning health system is all about. It isn't rocket science. It is a measure of our commitment to include the excluded and to bring neglected people right to the forefront and out of the darkness and into the light. And the bank is very committed to working with countries and with all the partners to make that happen. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Anstey. Now, Novartis is another company we're all familiar with, and Joseph Jimenez is its CEO, and his company has a long history with leprosy elimination programs, and he's committed to doing more. So I ask you, Mr. Jimenez, new contributions may be essential, but how are you making sure that these donations are actually having an impact?
Yes, at Novartis we have a long history of working with the World Health Organization to eliminate leprosy, and today we announced that we are extending our donation of multi-drug therapy for an additional 5 years through 2020. And the objective is to eliminate the disease. But we have to go beyond just the donation of the drug. And we are committed to doing 3 things. First, we're financing logistics and distribution through the World Health Organization. So an example of this is a mobile diagnostic van that travels to remote areas of Brazil to find patients with the disease. The second thing that we're doing is we're introducing a text messaging supply system to make sure that pharmacies in remote areas don't run out of stock. And third, we're inviting major leprosy institutions to join a new multi-stakeholder effort to help patients overcome the social stigma associated with leprosy. So 20 years ago, leprosy was a public health problem in 122 countries. And over the last 20 years, the disease burden has been reduced 95%, but it's still far from over. In 2011, there were 238,000 new cases diagnosed. But we have the opportunity now to make leprosy a thing of the past, and we're going to be working with stakeholders to make that happen.
Sarah, thank you very much. Now, another company represented here, MSD, has a long-standing commitment to fighting river blindness, which Dr. Anstey had mentioned, from the World Bank had mentioned just a short while ago. Now, MSD's CEO, Kenneth Fraser, joins us here. Mr. Fraser, sustainability is also a key to this initiative, and there's a lot of work ahead to achieve those 2020 goals. So, looking at MSD's long track record, how has the company sustained this program over the years, and what's needed to make sure that these programs do continue?
Thank you. First of all, let me say it's a pleasure for me to be here today and to be joined by all these other people who have worked so hard to try to eliminate some of these diseases, but I agree with what's been said by Dr. Chan and Mr. Gates that we have an awful long way to go. Like these companies, MSD has also had a strong commitment to access, and through the River Blindness Program, which started back in 1987, we've committed to eliminate river blindness by donating Mectizan for as long as it's needed. And in 1998, we expanded the program to include the prevention of lymphatic filariasis. This happens to be the 25th anniversary of the Mectizan donation program, and through this long-term commitment, I think we've learned some lessons that I think are important. The first one is that it's taught us that sustainable, multi-year commitments of not just the medicine, but financial support, logistical support, and other resources are critical to a successful program. Without these long-term commitments, NTD control and elimination targets are hard to predict and even harder to achieve. The Mectizan donation program has also shown us the importance of broad collaboration to reach a common goal of addressing NTDs. Our cross-industry partnership with GSK on lymphatic filariasis elimination, which is now in its second decade, I think is a good illustration of what companies can do together and how it's possible to coordinate to achieve a common objective. We're seeing today that increased collaboration among stakeholders will be the standard approach to NTDs, and actually, I think that's very exciting going forward. I think it's also important to remember the old adage, we value what we measure and we measure what we value. Clearly, we value the impact of our investments on these NTDs, and therefore we have to measure our progress against the commitments we're discussing today. And we've agreed as a group to develop a tracking mechanism, a scorecard, to illustrate and communicate our performance against commitments. We hope that this collective approach to transparency will keep all of us accountable while also attracting new partners. And as we've learned also during today's event, we have a unique opportunity to enhance what we're doing by working together on a common goal. Decades of collective and individual efforts have yielded great results. However, the renewed dedication of the people today will help us realize our vision of a future free of NTDs for millions of people. So thank you very much.
Mr. Fraser, thank you, sir. Thank you. Now, of course, the same question of sustainability holds true when it comes to R&D. So Dr. Jörg Reinhardt is the chairman of the board of management of Bayer Healthcare. And I ask you, Dr. Reinhardt, how can companies ensure that investments in R&D now lead to much-needed products?
Well, thank you. I mean, we all know that R&D in the pharmaceutical industry is a risky, lengthy, expensive undertaking, and it still takes, on average, 10 years to bring a new product to the market. So in order to fulfill our objectives for 2020, it means that we need to start with what we've got. So, and you heard several commitments for joint clinical trials, which is something that was potentially probably unprecedented a number of years ago. But now we have companies working together, joining forces, and actually sharing resources in preclinical and clinical development to develop existing products, which are then expected to be more efficacious or more efficient or more convenient for patients. So, for example, several companies work on pediatric formulations that will make it much more easier for kids to take these drugs at all. Now, but that is not going to be enough. In order to really control these diseases, we will also develop new products, and we will also do that in a joint manner. Now, what we are starting to do now is actually for the first time sharing our libraries. Actually, we are offering our libraries to not only other companies, but also to third parties. So we offer the opportunity to collaborate on a very basic level in research and development. And that's something that will bring us together and will give us actually much more power than we would have as a company alone. So I believe what we see today is an unprecedented commitment of the whole industry to work together and actually by doing that go the longer way and actually travel fast, as mentioned before.
Dr. Reinhardt, thank you very much, sir. Well, Brazil has done an amazing job of creating changes at all levels of society, including tackling NTDs, and we're very glad to have here the country's Secretary of Health Surveillance at the Ministry of Health with us, Dr. Jarbas Barbosa. Sir, I've got to ask you, it's clear that more effort is needed at the country level if these 2020 goals are to be reached. So what more can be done to make sure this progress is accelerated?
Thank you. I do believe that it is feasible to achieve the elimination and control of this disease by 2020. I think that based on our national experience, I think that the face of all is very clear that in Latin America and the Caribbean region nowadays, these diseases are localized, concentrated in rural area, indigenous people, very poor neighborhoods. So I think that the very first task is to make these people visible, is to target the areas, is to ensure the social participation in the process, is to remove the social, economic, and the health service related barriers to ensure that they will have real access to the tools that are already available. I think the other very important thing is to ensure the South-South cooperation. For example, Brazil and Venezuela can enhance their collaboration and work together on the border to eliminate onchocerciasis among the Yanomami people. I think that this kind of thing is very important, and the countries can do a very important part if they have the elimination of this disease as a priority in their national health plans, with goals, with the proper budget, and the commitment to ensure that we will reach these objectives. The history of public health elimination, I think that shows us that the first and the final step are the harder one. So I think that now, with this event, we are really pushing the final step, and I think that this is a very important commitment that we are having here to ensure that we will have this final step, and by 2020 we will have people not suffering more from this disease.
Sir, thank you so much. Now, first of all, we managed to cram in so much in these 4 acts, and it's quite amazing, you know, when you consider the importance of the people here, the sort of captains of industry and politics and NGOs and agencies. It's amazing we've managed to get in. I really thank you all for managing to get those comments short and sharp. So much has been raised in these short bites that everyone has given, and I know it's raised a lot of questions and you know, issues I'm sure you want to touch on. So I want to open it up for Q&A here and ask you to raise your hands, and I will get to you in the order in which I see the hands go up. We have a couple of people with microphones. I encourage my colleagues from the media as well to ask questions here. Of course, I know that each person here has so much more to say, and I know you're free to approach them as well. But while we have about 20 minutes here, let's try and get some questions in. So I know a gentleman there had his hand up first, and I'll come to you up there as well. Come to you as well. Okay, good.
Hello.
Tell us who you are and where you're from, please. And if you can, actually address the audience as well.
Thank you very much. My name is Dr. Daniel Peter Othol. I'm the head of the mission of the Republic of South Sudan in the United Kingdom. Thank you very much for having been given this opportunity to attend this meeting with my colleagues. As you know, the Republic of South Sudan is barely 7 months as an independent state. And therefore, there will be a dire need for help in health services. And I want to tell you that health services happen to be one of our priorities. And instead of dwelling on the control of tropical disease and like, I would like to get this chance to appeal to the NGOs and other organizations which can provide money or drugs to help the people of South Sudan to really enhance their health services. Some praises have been said by the audience or by the people or the panel in that there is need to identify priority needs of the countries. There is need to reach the drugs to the people. There is need to also identify the real causes of those diseases, especially better kind of control, as well as clean water. Because most of these diseases, like visceral leishmaniasis, schistosomiasis, and even the river blindness, are all caused by water or kind of polluted water. If we do not reach to the root cause of those diseases, otherwise we are not going to go anywhere, as been stated by His Excellency the Minister of Bangladesh. Exactly, if we do not identify what causes these diseases and stamp them out, our control programs will just be in vain. In the control program diseases, the drugs do not work much, but we have to eliminate the sources. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So I'm going to actually ask Dr. Margaret Chan just to address that, because of course the development path is a parallel one. You have microphone 2 there.
Sir, I thank you very much for your intervention. You know, it is absolutely spot on. And without the, addressing the root causes, water and sanitation, basic nutrition, hygiene, all these are very important. And as you said, South Sudan, we congratulate you for your work in reducing Guinea worm. And you are still, one country who need to work very hard with you, with the Carter's Foundation, to finish the job.
Thank you, ma'am. I'm going to just get the microphone up to you up there. You had your hand, gentlemen. But while it's getting up there, can I call on Sandy Beatty from Pfizer? Because I know you're here as well, and I want to just get you to address the important impact of that the work you've done on trachoma, and now are looking ahead to expand its efforts. So tell us about the new tools developed, but how sometimes old tools can be used in new ways. What else can be done?
Thanks, Riz. You can imagine how excited we were.
A little closer, sorry, with the microphone.
You can imagine how excited we were when one of the products that we'd been donating all along to help eliminate blinding trachoma actually turns out it may also be useful in attacking childhood mortality up to age 5. So one of the things we're excited about is a product that we love may actually have a new role in treating all the problems in the developing world.
Thank you very much, Sandy, for your contribution there. You can pass on the microphone down there, but I'll get you to address the next question up there, sir. Thank you for your patience.
Hi, my name is Dr. Zaimul Haq. I'm from Save the Children. Just a comment and a question. I really wanted to appreciate Dr. Caroline's inputs on the importance of strengthening health systems and making sure that there are systems in place where the drugs that are donated are being delivered at the community level, so not just focusing on drug donations, but also building systems and strengthening systems, and both at the health centers and at the community level. So really resonating that comment. The question probably is with the neglected diseases being one of the biggest problems with the poorest of all people, and around 400 million of the 1 billion people being children in school age. Can we not try to link this with school health interventions and making sure that the school-going children are also accessing the drugs that are being distributed?
Okay. I don't know if, Caroline, would you like to have Dr. Anstey? Go ahead.
I think I would just say yes. I think the key is, because so many of these diseases strike areas that are sometimes very isolated, what we think of as a traditional health system may not work. So we do have to work with local community health workers, but also through schools. And I think the school nexus, the school is very often the center of the community. And there again, whether it's NTD medicines, whether it's bed nets, whether it's vitamin A supplements, I think this idea of having one distribution point is very key. What we want to avoid here is that drugs are given and then sit in warehouses and never reach the people they need to reach. And so I think this healthcare system, which really, it sounds like a big bureaucratic thing. It's not. It's about connecting people and drugs. And I think that is a very good approach with schools, as you say.
And Dr. Chan, you wanted to add something.
I like to supplement. What you're saying is absolutely critical, because oftentimes when we talk about health systems, it's all too often for us to think of clinics, healthcare workers, but never forget, to be strategic, target our target audience for intervention. You talk about school children. In fact, I don't mind to tell you, one day I picked up the phone and talked to one of the CEOs in the audience. Well, there's no secret, it's GSK. I said, can you donate 400 tablets of 400 million doses to me? He said, what for, Margaret? I said, for all the school children in Africa who are suffering from the worms, and that deprive them of getting the right nutrition, and also that will zap their cognitive function so that they can function in school. So school is another important entry point other than, clinics. Thank you.
Dr. Chan, thank you. Now, I will try and get to the hands in the order, forgive me, but I also want to call on Julia Jacobson, who's here, and she's a well-known and formidable name in the NTDs field, and has been monitoring our tweets. So we've got a lot of people, as I say, online. So let's hear what we've got from there.
Yes, so we have several questions that have come in, but I'll start with one from Divine Usabe, a student who is watching from a college in Tima, Ghana. And Divine wants to know, what are the extra measures that the partners will take to help truly reach the poor rural areas in NTD endemic countries?
Okay. If anyone feels qualified to take on that. Sir? Stephen O'Brien?
I think the main thing is to follow the evidence, as I was discussing before. So whilst we're providing resources and will, of course, through the trusted partners and the experienced people on the ground, what seems to work best and what is coming back as results to us is to see the experience of the Carter Centre, to see what was going on in Tanga with lymphatic filariasis. It's not just the community health workers. Even some people can't get as far as the single point distributor. It's the house-to-house surveys. It's making sure that each village is addressed and every community is entered so that everybody has an opportunity to receive an intervention. So that seems to be the experience on the evidence that works.
Thank you, sir. And Dr. Barbosa, you want to add something?
Very brief comment. I think that it's very clear that you need to adapt the strategy to the reality in each country. But for example, in Latin America, many countries nowadays have programs to eliminate the extreme poverty. And in Brazil, we included the NTD elimination program as a very important part of the national program to eliminate the extreme poverty that will reach 16 million people that still live behind the extreme poverty line in our country.
Thank you, Dr. Barbosa. And I promise you, I will try to get to the questions in the order I see the hands go up. Do keep in mind that the afternoon session is a great opportunity for you to raise questions, make commitments and pledge commitments to the London Declaration. So it doesn't end here, but let's get as many in as we can here. Sir, who are you? And
I'm Gib Bullock from Accenture Development Partnerships and also serve on the board of the new END Fund. Congratulations to all the pharma companies here for coming together in this collaborative way. It strikes me, though, that there may well be opportunities for adjacent industries outside of pharmaceutical companies to come together on this issue if we're going to solve it. I'm thinking of the networks of the Vodafones or the supply chain expertise of the Coca-Cola and others. So my question is really, how can we turn the neglected tropical disease issue potentially or convince companies it could be a neglected market opportunity for them as well to engage?
Okay, and I'm going to open it up to anyone who feels they can tackle this. Sir?
Well, I don't know about tackling it, but I think this is going on. I know we've done a program, Text for Babies, which actually supplies phones to mothers in many of these areas who are able to work to get on a text and be able to get information about their children and the benefit and how to care for their children. So I think that many of these things, though, all of these companies are working hard in the pharmaceutical area. We're also working very hard with other companies to make sure that distribution is there and information is communicated on an ongoing basis.
Thank you, sir. If we can just get the microphone up to the gentleman at the back there. I'll come to you in a moment, sir, if we can. Just a few more to come.
Dr. Chris Nonis. I'm the Sri Lankan High Commissioner to the UK, but also I was involved on the country coordinating mechanism for the Global Fund for AIDS, TB and Malaria, which was, of course, in Sri Lanka a substantial recipient from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And my question, it's really very heartening and very commendable to see such a commitment towards neglected tropical diseases. I just wonder, a country like Sri Lanka, which actually has fairly good perinatal and maternal morbidity and mortality rates from WHO indices within the South Asian region, I think one of the thoughts is, that has contributed towards this is the literacy rate of the population. And I just wonder, as we're going to embark on this program towards neglected tropical diseases, I wonder what the panel's views are on adopting a somewhat more holistic approach and having actually a targeted program also towards looking at improving literacy levels in developing countries, South-South collaboration, and particularly on educational programs, and where you see the value of that would fit in as part of this very ambitious but very commendable program. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. I'm going to ask Dr. Pablo Mendez from USAID to answer that.
Very important point. Integrated development is key, and as we have heard from several of the comments that link to schools and community and the most neglected people, indeed, girls' education may contribute up to 30% to the decrease in child mortality. So education is paramount, and as well as the rest of the efforts, the World Bank, USAID, many others work. And so it is it's great to have key interventions like the NTD campaigns in the context of everything else we're doing. And of course, there are multiple layers of coordination. But I can only agree that indeed integrated development, education, water and sanitation, community development is paramount. USAID has been indeed also mapping. I think people talk about evidence before, and you have to map where the disease is so you can indeed bring the treatments to those. And everything you need to have in place is what the health system is about.
Thank you, sir. I'm glad we can give Mr. Bill Gates more than 3 minutes, because I think you have a comment on this, sir.
Well, definitely these health interventions have a huge impact on allowing people when they go to school to be able to achieve. There was a really good study done on hookworm, which is one of these diseases, and they compared incentives for kids to go to school, huge investment in the schools, and hookworm. And hookworm was, getting rid of hookworm had the biggest impact on allowing those students to learn. So all of these things really multiply each other. Improving agriculture so that the kids have enough nourishment, that helps. Avoiding the disease helps, and education. Those are kind of the magic three that lead a country up to meet the Millennium Development Goals.
Thank you, sir. I want to call on Mr. Wing Jun Tam from the Lions Club's International Foundation, who's here too as well, and representing many of the groups here today. An example of NGOs funding and working on the ground fighting NTDs, of course, and that's essential. So I ask you, sir, the Foundation's been partnering for many years with governments in Africa and Asia to work against diseases such as river blindness and trachoma. And I gather you have some exciting news, so could you just tell us quickly about the role that NGOs play and what you have planned?
Yes, basically...
Should we just keep talking into it? Should be okay.
Basically, Lions Club International is not only supporting and endorsing the NTD program, but for the past many years, we've been spending about $60 million on river blindness as well as trachoma. And we'll be continuing together with all the partners and to serve this community. I just want to share with you that we just newly signed an agreement with the Chinese government and spending about $7 million to try to eliminate trachoma in China. So those are the things that we would like to work together, and I would like also to take this opportunity to thank all the partners that have been giving us all the support, and we are looking forward to your support in the future so that we are able to achieve 2020. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, sir. We commend you on your initiative. Time to squeeze in one more question. So tell us who you are and your question, please.
Thank you, yes. My name is Rob Walters. I'm the chairman of Orbis International Saving Site Worldwide.
And my question is this. This is a wonderful start to have all these very important people contributing to this extremely important topic. Well, what matters to me is what we do from now on, how we coordinate ourselves on the ground. We work a great deal with Pfizer, for example, in Ethiopia in treating and eliminating trachoma. But we cannot do it alone. And what we need from now, I think, is a lot more coordination on the ground. So the question is, how do we coordinate ourselves on the ground from now on?
Okay, thank you, sir. I open that up to Minister.
Thank you, Rich. Just to give some answers to our earlier question, how do you tackle the poor people and the technology? We do have a National Immunization Day. So we do tackle the poor people by, we have 120,000 centers run for a day. And we tackle 20 million children, 20 to 25 million children. We give them anti-helminthisis as well as this school program. And as far as the technology, we have for mothers, we have got a telephone text facility that we have introduced recently and working very well.
Thank you, Minister. Interesting technology use there. Dr. Chan?
I'd like to comment on the challenge of coordination. It is so well said. Nobody likes to be coordinated. It's one hell of a task to coordinate others. So I have to commend all the leaders here today. This is perhaps, in my 30 year in public health, the most comprehensive, coordinated action to address NTD. Because it requires people to be prepared to give up a bit of their own sovereignty, so to speak, company sovereignty. I've never seen so many competitors working together. I just wonder, Bill, what did you do? And the CEO Roundtable. And of course, on our part, since I took office in 2007, I said earlier, we just cannot bear the suffering and the misery due to NTD. And WHO has played its part with World Bank, with UNICEF, and other partners. At the end of the day, coordination is most effective at the country level, led by the ministry. And if indeed the ministry has the capacity to do it, we need to base on the country's need. How are we going to make use and adapt to your health system's performance, your healthcare worker, your community worker, your school network? So if we truly believe in working together, are you prepared to be coordinated? So that's the question.
I want to squeeze in very quickly Dr. Mbando from Tanzania.
Yes, just a quick comment that we really need to work with the existing structures and system on the ground, because at the national level we do have a national program for controlling of these diseases, and this goes down to the district levels, whereby we have appointed district and regional coordinators to be able to monitor the implementation of the programs. However, political commitment are gaining momentum. We have commitment from our leadership, and this is giving us more efforts and encouragement to move forward. And just recently we had a stakeholders meeting, which actually we had being able to discuss the issues of how we are going to coordinate the implementation of these programs countrywide. Thank you.
Dr. Mbando, thank you very much. And sadly, we reached the final moments of the session here. We managed to get some good Q&A in. I apologize that we couldn't get any more in. There will be questions in the afternoon session as well, so I do apologize. We're very strict for time here. I don't know how we managed to get, when I was first told it was going to be called Acts 1, 2, 3, and 4, I was thinking this is going to be very challenging. I didn't think we'd be able to squeeze so much into such a short space of time. I think William Shakespeare's plays would have been called very different names if he had had to shorten them the same way. We'd have had Romeo and Juliet would have been Ro and Jules. Julius Caesar would have been JC, quite controversial, I'm sure. And as for Macbeth, well, I won't say Mac because I don't want to offend Mr. Bill, so yeah, Mr. Bill Gates. So anyway, I do have enough time for brief closing comments from our two key contributors here. If it wasn't for Mr. Bill Gates, of course, we wouldn't all be gathered here, and I think that's been mentioned. Sir, I give you the floor for the closing comments.
Great. Well, it's certainly thrilling to have gone from a year ago of this just being an idea when we were meeting with the pharma companies to now coming together. It is a milestone event. I want to commit to you that we will be measuring progress. You saw those charts that showed what's possible. I'm sure from time to time we'll be falling short. We'll need to ask people to step up and do more, whether it's at the drug level, the donor level, or the delivery level. We have very ambitious goals that we've set. For example, for guinea worm, we've got that 2015 eradication. And so we have a nice little competition going on between polio and guinea worm to see which will get to be the second disease eradicated and which will get to be the third disease eradicated. And the sooner the better for both of those. So, this is very tangible. If you ever, don't have that clearly in mind, just go online and see what these diseases are like and look at the numbers that we'll make sure are widely available about how the generosity and the cooperation that we've seen today is really going to make a difference.
Mr. Gates, thank you very much, sir.
And Risk, let us not forget the huge contribution by Risk. Please give him a big hand. Bill and friends and colleagues, thank you so much for what you are doing. But let us not be naive. The roadmap that we launched today, the targets are achievable. It has been tested and proven by scientists. I saw Sir Roy somewhere. He was helping in a big hand. Oh, there you will go. So it is achievable. It is doable. The commitment from the industry partner, from civil society, from endemic countries, the list is very long. I shall not mention them. But we must hold each other to account. So the scorecard that was mentioned is extremely important. Having worked with Bill for all these years, I know he's very interested in innovation, in partnership, but also in metrics. And I'm sure he will, and we will, measure you and hold you to promise. If you keep your promise, just think of the prospect of freeing millions of people. Most of them are children and women, so that they could have a healthy and productive life. On that, I need you too. I need your support. Come with us. This is going to be a long journey, but we have a very good first step. Thank you.
Chan, thank you. And I guess I can't help but ask you to just indulge me, since we have India, Argentina, Peru, everyone, Tanzania, everyone watching us, please a big round of applause and a wave to everyone who's watching us online. So. At the end of all those cartoons that we grew up watching, they always say, "That's all, folks." Well, we know it isn't in this case. I thank you for taking part. It carries on this afternoon. Thank you very much.